Okay, why don't we go ahead and get started? I'd like to welcome everyone out tonight, and Hayden Fields and your friends, would you come join me, please? So Hayden is a sixth grader at Bear Creek, and she's going to go ahead and start off the meeting for us.
She's got friends.
Good evening. I would like to call this meeting to order. Please take roll.
Mr. Mika?
Mr. Clausen?
Thank you. Aye.
Mr.
Are here.
Goff?
Aye.
Ms. Phillips?
Here.
Mr. Taylor?
Here.
Ms. Upchurch?
Here.
Thank you. To view this meeting's presentation documents, please access Board Docs. The link to Board Docs website can be found via the D38 website, www.lewispalmer.org, on the Board Education/Meetings webpage. We'll now be privileged to have a patriotical performance by Bear Creek Elementary School. If you'll join me by standing.
Sorry, you were all ready to go.
That's not your fault. That's his fault.
That's my fault.
Okay.
Thank you very much. My name is Sarah Lawyer, and I'm the music teacher and the director of the sixth grade band at Bear Creek Elementary. And we have one more selection for you this evening, America the Beautiful.
Stay right there. Parents, why don't you come up and take some pictures if you'd like.
It sounds so much better as a video.
Thank you, that was wonderful.
You're playing.
A little delay. Per board policy BEDH, would you like me to pause for a second, Mr. Poff? Thank you for the reminder. Do we have any Boy Scouts or Girl Scouts with us tonight? All right. Will you come forward and lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Per board policy BEDH, public participation at school board meetings, there is one time for public comment and is limited to 30 minutes. In an effort to allow all who wish to speak, the amount of time dedicated to each speaker will be dependent upon the number of people who sign up, with the entire public comment period not exceeding 30 minutes. If 10 people or fewer sign up, each person will have 3 minutes to address the board. The sign-up sheet for public comments will be available at 5 p.m. in the Learning Center meeting room. All speakers will be asked to limit their remarks to the time allotted based on the total number of speakers not to exceed 3 minutes per person. If a group of people have a similar concern, the board requests that a spokesman for that group be selected. The board respects the rights of the public to speak on matters concerning the operation of the schools. We believe that public comments that are critical to district staff, however, often cause unnecessary harm to those employees and the education of our students. As a result, we prefer that members of the public share any criticisms of employees in writing with the superintendent, who is responsible for supervising all staff, then involving the board as necessary. If you choose instead to address personnel issues publicly, please understand the board does not endorse the comment of any speaker and reminds all who speak they assume the risk of legal action by district employees in the event that the affected employee believes that any comments about them violate legal standards. So with that being said, we'll move on to our next agenda item, and that is to approve the agenda as presented, and I make a motion as such.
I'll second.
Okay. Questions, comments, concerns? Ms. Namika?
Mr. Clausen.
Aye.
Mr. Quad.
Aye.
Ms. Phillips.
Aye.
Mr. Taylor.
Aye.
Ms. Upchurch.
Aye.
We'll now be privileged to have a demonstration of learning by the Bear Creek Elementary School, and I believe it's this group over here.
So our demonstration of learning tonight is also twofold. It is one of the ways that this community gives back to our schools, and we're lucky enough that learning goes outside the classrooms, and I'm not going to steal their thunder, so I'm just going to talk for a second and let them take over. But these are some of our K-Kids. This is our board, and Dr. Jessica Miller, one of our sponsors, and I thought that Mrs. Smoot was here also. Mrs. Smoot, come on up. And we also have two other sponsors that couldn't be here tonight. And they're going to talk a lot about how this starts in the elementary, and it's their leadership. And thanks to the Kiwanians like RF, and I think that Max Williams is here also, they're going to talk about how this club starts in the elementaries, goes to the middle school, and all the way to the high schools. So I'm going to turn it over to you guys. Thanks for being here tonight.
All right, so I'm just going to tell you a little bit about our K-Kids group and how it's organized, and I'll pass it over to our student leaders. We meet twice a month at Bear Creek. It's a student-led community service group for students who are in 4th through 6th grade. The students elect their board every year in the spring and also in the fall, and then they divide up into committees, and the committees elect their own leadership as well. The board helps the group decide on different community service projects that they'd like to do. So we traditionally help out with Harvest of Love, Pennies for Patients. Those are big ones, but each year they choose different ones. So they've worked on projects for the Humane Society, the Cheyenne Mountain Zoo, the Juvenile Diabetes Research Foundation. So it's really up to our board to decide which groups they want to support and how they're going to do that. So I will pass it over to them and let them explain a little bit more about their role and why they do K-Kids.
Hello, I'm Savannah Holland. I'm in 6th grade, and I'm the president of the K-Kids Club here. In 5th grade, I joined because I thought of it as student council, which was at my old school when I moved here. And it was. And I also found being in a leadership position very interesting. And through K-Kids, I got to do what I wanted to do that way. Through the projects that we have done with the Humane Society and the Griffith Center with Children and the Children's Hospital and Pennies for Patients, I have learned that being a leader isn't just about bossing people around and telling them what to do, but it's about making a decision for the group and listening to other people's ideas and making a collective decision that is the best for everyone.
Hi, my name is Kate. I'm in 5th grade, and I'm the vice president. I joined this year because a lot of my friends had told me about the club, and it just sounded really great. My favorite part of it all has really been trying to decide which fundraisers we should do and what spirit days we can use and stuff. And it's just been really fun for me.
Hi, my name is Joe. I joined K-Kids in 4th grade because not only did my mom make me, but I thought it would be a fun learning experience of leadership and responsibility. And after these fundraisers that we've been doing, they've taught me to kind of share thoughts and ideas, and it taught me to have responsibility and write stuff down, to keep stuff in track. And what we've been doing for the past 3-4 weeks, I think, we've been doing a fundraiser for leukemia and lymphoma, and it's called Pennies for Patients. And our next fundraiser will be, and our new fundraiser is the Griffith Center for foster children. And yeah, thank you.
My name is Roz, and I'm in 5th grade, and I am the treasurer of K-Kids. And the reason why I joined is because, and not only did my mom make me, but I really thought it was really fun here, and that's why I joined again, because it really encouraged me to do a lot more things than I used to. And what I learned is not only to just listen to the group, is to choose what is best for the whole school, Pennies for Patients, which really made them happy, and they had fun with it, and I really did. It was really fun for me, and in 4th grade, I was part of Teachers Appreciation, and I kind of helped out with my group when they were stuck with things. I would normally step up for them and help them make it right. And yeah.
My name is Reagan, and I'm in 5th grade, and I'm the Sergeant of Arms on the board of K-Kids. I joined in 4th grade because I've always liked being in a leadership position, and I thought that this might help me develop my leadership and make it better. And I've learned that being a leader doesn't just mean making the right decisions, it also means making some of the hard ones. And I think that it has also helped me with organization and helped me listen to others better, and yeah.
How about these kids? It's my privilege to be the Kiwanis advisor to these great Bear Creek K kids. They've done an amazing job this year for service to other people, a primary lesson. I want to take just a second with the board's indulgence to let you know that this is the beginning of a spectrum of clubs in District 38 that Kiwanis offers. And we have with us Brenna and Caroline, who are going to talk a little bit about Builders Club and Key Club, so you get an idea of how the responsibility and the projects they tackle grow as they grow through the spectrum.
So, hey everybody, my name is Caroline Bushnell. I'm a board member this year at Palm Ridge Key Club, and I just wanted to come and talk a little bit about what Key Club is doing and what Key Club is doing with these guys. So, Key Club in general is a 270,000 member international service organization that is completely student-led. So we have boards from the club level all the way to international, and all of those leaders are elected by the Key Club members, and they're all high school students. And that is really one of the things that makes this such an amazing organization, because these guys are learning how to be leaders, learning how to be tomorrow's leaders early in their lives so that they have that ability when they do have to step in. So, Brenna, you want to add?
Sure. I'm Brenna. I'm a sophomore at Palmer Ridge High School, and I joined Key Club when I was just in 4th grade, like these little guys here. And it has been an amazing opportunity for me. I have grown into an amazing leader, and I am very proud of where I am today because of Key Club. And we are going to our district convention coming up just next week, and to represent Colorado and our Key Clubs at our schools. And we're very excited, and we're glad these guys are involved in growing up into this amazing leadership. So.
Absolutely, and just to add one more thing. So Kiwanis has been built, all of its branches have been built to grow with the kids. So it starts in 4th grade with K-Kids, these lovely people here, and then it goes to Builders Club in the middle school, which does very similar things to K-Kids, but every level that you go up, you get a little bit more opportunity and you get a little bit of a larger reach. So after Builders Club, it's Key Club, and then there's a college version called Circle K and other organization branches off of Kiwanis, like Action Club for adults with disabilities, and then Casey Graduates, which is Max Williams over here. And that's one of the things that I love about Key Club and Kiwanis, is that it grows with you and you grow with it. So, any questions? Thank you so much.
Item we have over here, Max Williams, who is the Vice President for Service Leadership Programs for our Monument Hill Kiwanis Club. If you have any questions after the meeting or at any other time, get in touch with Max. He'd be happy to answer your questions.
Thank you. Hey, and can we just have the kids stay there for a second? Parents, if any one of you would like to come forward and snap some pictures, feel free to do so. Thank you. Oh. Ma'am, do you want to come up and? Okay. All right, thank you. Appreciate your service to the community. Okay, we'll turn a few minutes over to Ms. Broff to introduce our 2 new principals.
So I am very excited to introduce our new principal for Prairie Winds Elementary and Palmer Ridge. I'm going to start with Alicia. If you want to come forward, Alicia, so I can talk a little bit about you. So Alicia was selected among a whole pool of candidates competing for the Prairie Winds principal position, and we are so excited to have Alicia on the team. Some of the things that she's done, she's served as the principal of Global Village Academy in D20 since 2013. Prior to that time, she served as a learning coach, Title I coordinator, kindergarten teacher, 5th grade teacher, and I'm sure there's more. That's just a few things that she's done. So one of the things I really noticed at the meet and greet that we had at Prairie Winds is, first of all, she wrote a thank you note to every single teacher and arrived having written these personalized notes because every teacher wrote to her, every staff member wrote to her from Prairie Winds. And to show up that first day with a reply for everyone definitely demonstrates her desire to show caring and relationship to her staff. And that's really important in our district as well as at Prairie Winds. But on top of that, her expertise definitely came through as we completed the interview process. She's very knowledgeable about curriculum instruction and pedagogy, which is our word for making sure that we understand how people learn. And we are really excited to have her here. One of her quotes that she provided in her application materials was her belief system. She believes that an educator's mission is to make school enjoyable and exciting. If students look forward to attending school, they will want to learn. We are excited. We're sad to see our beloved principal, Eileen Finnegan, move on, but we think Alicia will usher in a new era at Prairie Winds and will be just as phenomenal of a principal. So please welcome Alicia.
All right, well, she said most of what needs to be said. I just want you to know that when I came to interview at District 38 for this position, it was such a pleasant experience. I was telling the principals upstairs, I had been interviewing for different positions that whole week, and it was just, you know, when you interview, you're interviewing the team that's interviewing you and vice versa, because I needed to find the right fit for me and they needed to find the right fit for them. But when I came to the interview, it just felt like I was at home. People were so kind, and I could tell that we were connecting, and I walked out thinking, wow, if that doesn't work, then I should probably stay where I'm at, because that was great. So I just would like to thank everyone that sat on the interview committees and people who have worked with me since then to help welcome me into the district. This district has been incredibly welcoming, just really going out of their way. I am leaving a school that I've been at as the principal for 6 years, and I'm taking all the little things that have been done here that have been meaningful to me to my school to have them do that to welcome someone in, because it really does mean a lot when you take the time to help someone feel welcome. I'm just excited to get to know all of you, and thank you so much.
Next up is Dr. Terry Bramscriber, if you want to come forward, and you can have your family join you as well. Terry's entire family is here. If you don't want to, it's fine too. So this is Dr. Terry Bramscriber, and he has a wealth of history as a leader and as an expert in education. He most recently served as the assistant principal at Discovery Canyon since 2009, Discovery Canyon High School. Prior to that, he filled multiple roles over his 25 years in education, including Dean of Students, middle and high school science teacher, science department chair, district mentor teacher, district strategic planning facilitator, and certified TAP, that stands for Teacher Advancement Program, evaluator. And one of the things that I noticed about Terry in his interview process was, again, much like Alicia, his depth of knowledge is incredible. What he brings to Palmer Ridge, and he competed against a really tough pool as well. What he brings to Palmer Ridge is a very deep understanding around curriculum instruction and pedagogy, what I talked about with Alicia, but he also brings a very deep knowledge around professional learning communities, which that is how we grow and develop our teachers, and it's how we grow and develop and make sure we're meeting the needs of kids. And in addition to that, he actually was sort of the go-to person in D20 for that particular role. You may not know because he's acting very calm and cool and collected up here, but he also has what we hear and we've heard glimmers of, an amazing sense of humor. So if you're a Palmer Ridge student and you haven't, wait till you see that too. You saw it in Mr. Gable, and again, we're replacing a beloved principal who started the legacy. I don't even know where Gary is right now. There he is, at Palmer Ridge. And we will never be able to replace Gary because he is Mr. Palmer Ridge because he started it. But I'm confident that in Terry we have someone who will continue and expand and grow that legacy. One of his quotes that he gave us, helping multiple stakeholders come to consensus about new ideas and strategies while preserving the culture. That's what he thinks makes schools unique. So welcome to Terry.
I wasn't going to say anything, but since Alicia spoke for so long, I feel I have to now. No, I would reiterate everything that Alicia said. Very, very welcoming, the whole process. Like Alicia, I was involved in several interviews during that particular week, and Gary has been especially welcoming. In fact, he called me up to congratulate me even before I had told my current principal that I was taking the job. So Gary called me up and congratulated me, and I said, I better tell my principal that I'm leaving. So I got on the phone really quickly and let him know, because he used to work with my old principal back in Cherry Creek, I believe. But this is a dream come true for me and my whole family. I had my son wear this jersey. He's in middle school. He goes to Discovery Canyon, but he's been playing park and rec football up here in Monuments, and I thought, you know, Bram Schreiber looks pretty good in these colors, so you can go ahead and wear those. So thank you very much to everybody.
Now it's our privilege next to recognize the 2019 4A high school basketball champions, Lewis Palmer High School. Coach Benton.
They say a school board's only as good as the high school basketball team. I think that's true this year for
That's
sure.
right.
Coach Benton.
Well, I appreciate the time that you guys have given us tonight, the support that you guys have given us all throughout the year. These young men have taken us on a great trip, and very proud of who they are on the floor. Great basketball players, finished an undefeated season, 28-0. But more proud of who they are as young men. Just a great group. I'll just start with a couple of quick introductions. Sophomore Eddie Speller, senior Dominic Roma, senior Trey McCullough, senior Ethan Forrester, first name and last name. sorry, it happened today. Senior Matthew Rysdale, sophomore Colin Westfall, senior Noah Baca, senior Braden Curry, senior Joel Scott, junior Kyle Berry, senior Lauren Phillips, and senior Stephen Wright. So, and then assistant coach Pernell Baca. I want to say thank you to all of you, but I definitely want to say thank you to you guys for how you represented our program, our team, our school, and our district all year long. Very proud of them. So thank you guys for allowing us to be here tonight.
I'll be in front.
Jason, stand by your son.
Chris.
Chris. Dr. Bentley, yes, you join us too. Everyone's going to try to figure out the 7-foot board member. Thank you. Once again, congratulations.
Where's that pocket dumping guy? That was a nice dump. But Joel's was pretty nice too. That was a massive dump. Now you can take pictures for real. No, just kidding. I can't tell you how much fun it is to be a school board member at the championship game at the Coliseum and watching these kids. It was incredible. And I've noticed all through the year that they always helped other teammates up and individuals from the other team up as well. So just understand that that was noticed by a lot of people. You guys are awesome.
Thank you, Mr. Paul. Mr. Gable.
Well, first of all, this is not easy, but I want to tell you, LP, your basketball team was amazing. It was not easy. It's easy for me to tell you that because I'm jealous. You guys really played outstanding, but I think what was amazing to me is you're really a class act, and I saw that every game. And what your coach said, you modeled, and he set a good example. And you guys, really proud of you for the district, proud of you for your high school, and I wish you the best in the future. You're a good group of young men. So, anyway, and I'm also glad I'm here and you're there because I would need Mr. Francis to come stand by me so I'd feel a little better. So it's my honor tonight to recognize a few different people, but the first person I have the privilege of honoring is Gary Long. You want to come on up, Gary? Gary was the 4A class Colorado Springs Coach of the Year. He's our head coach, and he's been coach for the last 4 years for our boys and girls program. He also helps out with our basketball program, so he's a year-round coach at Palmer Ridge. And he's a great guy because he's not only busy enough doing the coaching with the golf teams and the basketball, but you'll see him at other sporting events and other events supporting our kids. And it's all about relationships. And it's a great honor for you. Our kids did really well this year and last year, and I think you're part of the reason. I know you're part of the reason. So, Gary, I want to thank you for your commitment to the student athletes in Palmer Ridge as a school. And I know it takes a lot of time away from your wife, so I want to thank you for giving up your husband to Palmer Ridge for all those hours. But congratulations, and you want to add anything?
Well, I've had the privilege of coaching at Palmer Ridge. This is my 9th year of being at Palmer Ridge involved with girls basketball. And 4 years ago, I took over both golf programs and have been fortunate enough to have some very good players. Very good players, as Coach Benton probably knows, makes you a really good coach. And so I've had the good fortune of having some good girls golfers, some good boys golfers, and we've got some young kids coming into the program. So I'm looking forward to helping Palmer Ridge out any way that I can in the future. My first year of coaching in the district was actually at LP. With girls basketball 9 years ago. So I've got some ties with you guys, always pulling for you guys, and congratulations on y'all's achievements this year. I came from practice, so.
lessons to the board members so we can play golf.
There could be a retreat.
All right, our next person unfortunately could not be here tonight, but I want to recognize Mallory Cuccio. Mallory, first of all, is a graduate of LP in 2012, and she was our field hockey coach this year. It was her first year, and they had won the state championship the year before, so it was quite a challenge because we had a lot of talent, like the LP basketball team, a lot of seniors. But she did an amazing job, and they were very competitive, and she was able, by how well they did and how well she coached, she was also recognized as the field hockey coach of the year in her first year of coaching, so I think that was pretty remarkable.
Thanks, Terry. Tony, if you'll come and join us.
Okay, great. Mr. Baker. Sorry, we moved some things around because we thought we were missing people.
That's all right, thank you. All right, so just a quick story. Just so happens yesterday I was talking to my neighbor and he said it's pretty impressive how just this small town has such good athletic programs, and was commenting after he had listened to some sports talk radio about high school. He said he almost changed the station because it was high school, but he thought he'd give it a listen. And they mentioned in that talk radio that Lewis Palmer basketball team was the best team in the state of all classifications. And so he was just complimenting the school on that, but he also brought up our volleyball team, the football team at Palmer Ridge, cross country, all the sports just in this small little town that do so well, where, in other areas, league titles kind of the top of the list. So glad to be a part of it. And with that comes awesome coaches, coachable kids, and great administration that allows us to do our job. So with that, we have a coach who's been with us for, is it 20 years-ish? Over 20 seasons when you combine boys and girls swimming. He also has 2 state titles under his belt for Lewis Palmer High School and the district team combined with Palmer Ridge for the boys swimming. Multiple league titles, countless top 5, top 10 finishes in the state with the swim program, both boys and girls. And Coach Allen was nominated for National Federation of High School Sports Coach of the Year for the state of Colorado, and he won that. And with that win, you move on to a sectional that you have to win to get nominated for National Coach of the Year, which he also won. So this award from National Federation High School Sports says that this award designates Allen among the most elite coaches in the country, as well as the state and sectional coach of the year for the sport. The following criteria was used selecting National Coaches of the Year: career coaching record, community service, involvement in other school activities, involvement in profession at local, state, and national levels, and philosophy and athletics. So, Alan, come on up.
I'm actually a professional swim announcer too, so you could be here for a while. when I first came to LP, we didn't even have a boys swim team, and they hired me as their first coach. That was many years ago. They asked me, how long were you going to coach, or will you plan on coaching here? And I said, I think I'll probably do it about 8 seasons. Between the girls and the boys now, it's been 23, and I have just retired. Well, I thought I did it before the girls' season, but that didn't seem to work out very well. We do have great coaches here, and that means we have great support for our coaches. I know what it takes to be the coach at this level, and the time commitment way outside the sport. I think people think that, they're on the deck or on the court or on the field for the 2 hours of practice each day or whatever. My day started at 7:30 in the morning. Pretty much every morning I coached. And that time till about 3 o'clock was all administrative stuff. And there's much more administrative stuff than there ever is any athletic stuff. But then I went to the pool and I coached diving. And I did that till about 5:30. And then maybe I went home, but maybe not, because at 6:30 I had to start coaching swimming, and that was done at 9 o'clock, but then I had to wait until all the swimmers left and everything else. I got home about 10 o'clock every night, and that was my day, every day. And Saturdays were long meets. And Sundays, you think that's a day of rest, but if it is, then you're probably going to be behind starting the next week. And with all that, I had my wife helping me all the time and doing a lot of extra work too. And this is what the life of a coach really is like here. If you want your team to be like those guys over there, you have to put in those extra hours. And it starts well before the season too these days. I mean, it seems it gets earlier and earlier each year. If we have a winter sport, we're starting in August. And especially if you have, we have multiple sports and other coaches coaching multiple teams, and that means if you have them back to back, the boys' season, you have to get it all ready during the girls' season, and there's no time for that. And then after the girls' season's over, there's still all this wrap-up to do, and then the boys' season is going on. And so this is what kind of coaching is like, and it's, when you see, I'm retired, so I can say this now, but when you see one of these coaches out there, just know how hard they're working. So I don't know what it takes to be the national coach of the year either. I mean, who selects that, and what do they get their information from and everything, frankly. But it is an honor to do this, and it's an honor to represent Lewis Palmer School District in doing this. And by the way, our teams are represented from both schools. We have one team for the 2 schools. So we draw pretty much equally through the years from Palmer Ridge and Lewis Palmer.
So, Mr. Baker, are you also going to introduce Meg, talk about Meg?
All right, so our baseball team does a lot of community service. One of the big ones is Wreaths Across America, where is it fundraise, purchased, Brett, or how does it go? Both. Fundraised and purchased wreaths that they put on the graves of our fallen soldiers. And they've been doing that for, is it 3 years now? Second year. They're also really big with Children's Hospital, going and just visiting with kids, playing with kids who actually might never have the opportunity to play sports in their life, and they read and do arts and crafts with those kids. And they're also currently organizing a book drive for the new Children's Hospital in Colorado Springs, and I do believe I heard Pine Creek. So before I get to that, he sent out a message to the league, and teams that we play locally to gather books, new books for this children's hospital. It was at 110 books that Pine Creek baseball team brought to our game, our away game. And other teams are doing this, and a lot of the credit goes to one of our parents, Meg Sugar, who's done a lot of the organizing of these events. So we would like to recognize Meg.
Meg, I wanted to give you not only this card, but certificate and a challenge coin. We give challenge coins to people in the community that give back and represent the same values we have in the district. And much like in the military, it represents our values, and we're trying to recognize the fact that we appreciate greatly how you have given back to our school district. Gary, would you like to come up again?
Terry, you need to get used to this. When you work with good people, you get to introduce them a lot, so that happens. So, it's my privilege to introduce Courtney Bushnell. Come on up, Courtney, and we'll talk a little bit about you. Courtney has done an amazing job with our DECA program. It's one of the best in the state, and she's basically built it from the ground up. We've been fortunate enough to have Courtney lead the program for the past 6 years, and she was recognized as new DECA Teacher of the Year for the state of Colorado, which is pretty incredible. And I'm going to probably mess this up, so this is my disclaimer here. You can correct it, and feel free to correct everything I mess up. But I believe you had to be a marketing teacher for somewhere between no more than 8 years, okay, 0 and 8 years to get recognized. And Courtney was recognized recently at the state DECA, what's the word? Not the convention, but competition. Thank you. Just on a side note. My wife teaches at Ponderosa High School, and there was a DECA teacher there. It's no longer there, but she's friends with my wife, and she sent a text message to my wife. It said, "You make sure that Gary knows how much Courtney did to help all the other advisors." I've never had anyone that helped that much. Usually they just take care of their kids and go on, and Courtney stayed there many, many hours after helping me and make sure everything ran well. So congratulations, Courtney, and I'll turn the mic over to you.
Sure. I'll try to be brief. I'm super passionate about DECA, so I could talk for hours about it, but I know you have other agenda items. I just can't say enough about the opportunities that DECA affords our students that are members, both during their high school years as they apply what they're learning about business and marketing and academic competition. They develop those presentation skills and critical thinking skills, all those soft skills that are going to help them be successful later in life, because one of DECA's big missions is to prepare students to be college and career ready. So super proud of my students and the hard work they put in. Just a quick recap, we have just over 100 DECA members at Palmer Ridge. We had 63 competing at state this year. We had 23 recognized on stage as national qualifiers. A couple of those in first place positions. So super proud of their hard work. Appreciate the support of our building admin and the district and our community. We have Karen has been down to judge before. Ms. Upchurch has been down to judge before. We have lots of community members and parents that support us in that way. So very appreciative to all of those people. So thank you.
I'd like to echo what Mr. Gable, Mr. Baker, and Coach Arata have expressed today about really the amount of time that goes into getting some of the results that we experience in this district and the high levels of achievement that our students experience are really extraordinary and really unique for D38. So we are very proud of those. This award, Carrie, would you come up, please? Carrie Hendricks, Miss Carrie Hendricks is a perfect example, another in this long line of achievements that really exemplifies what we do here in D38. Carrie has been the West Wind. West Wind is the name for our yearbook at Lewis Palmer High School. Carrie has been the Westbook yearbook advisor for 16 years. Our journalism, or our newspaper, Ranger Review, sorry, for the last 11 years. And over that course of time has been recognized, the West Wind has been recognized for national awards 5 different times, the 5th coming this upcoming April. Thank you. Awarded by Columbia University and will be recognized in New York City for their 5th national recognition. This is probably long overdue based off of her time, but is very, very much earned. Carrie is being here tonight because she's going to be recognized in April by the Journalism Educators Association for one of their national special recognition awards as a yearbook advisor of the year. So again, the time commitment that goes into it, the amount of professionalism, collaboration, high expectations that she has for the students, and the way they meet that is truly astonishing. So, Carrie, congratulations.
The only thing I want to say, and I'm sure that Courtney would say the same thing, and all of our coaches as well too, the kids make us look good, right? All we can do is just kind of give them the platform, and they're the ones that shine. I always tell my kids that I'm the one that's just cracking the whip in the back saying, please meet your deadlines, get your stuff done, stop laughing, this is not a fun class, get to work. That's all I do. But I've just done it for so long, and I've had so many state and national colleagues and a rep and a wonderful principal and just people behind me that kind of help me grow each year. And that's just the reason why they are great like they are. And I just want to thank the state of Colorado and our board and really all of our administrators for allowing our students to have the voice and the freedom of speech that a lot of students are not afforded in the United States. So I used to say we were one of 6 schools that got, or 6 states, excuse me, that got that, but now I think the number is in double digits now, and so we are still trying to support so many states across the union that have a new Voices Act that they're trying to get passed in their states. So thank you.
Next, we'll go to the public comment section of our board meeting. At this time, we will hear from the public, and there's 2 individuals signed up, so we will allot 3 minutes per individual. Ms. Burhans, you're first on the docket.
Hello, for those of you who don't know me, I'm Jackie Burhans. alumni mom, and I'm part of the Strong D38 community group. I just wanted to remind everybody that we're having a meeting on Wednesday, March 20th, this Wednesday, at Lewis Palmer Middle School, where we're going to have Tom Viersba, who's the president of NEPCO, talk about an explosion of growth. So he's going to talk about the growth that we've seen in this community, what has happened, what's underway right now, and what is projected for the future. He'll be able to answer questions. It's going to be a great presentation. There is nobody more knowledgeable that I know of about this than Tom Viersba. So I hope that some members of the board can come, and all members of the community are welcome. 6 to 7:30 p.m., Wednesday, March 20th at Lewis Palmer Middle School. Tom Viersba, be there or be square.
Next, we'll hear from Taylor Brevard, and I apologize in advance if I mispronounced that.
It's Brainerd.
Brainerd? Okay.
Hi everybody, my name's Taylor Brainerd and I'm a senior at Lewis Palmer High School, and all of these lovely people are different representatives from our high school and all of the academic organizations that we have at Lewis Palmer. So we delegate a lot of our personal time to these organizations, and more importantly, these organizations foster our interests in organizations like HOSA, Science Olympiad, and Debate, and we think that we should be recognized for all of this hard work at our graduation ceremony with honor cords. As of right now, under the status quo, the only organizations that are presented with honor cords are the honor societies that we currently have. So that's NHS, Rho Kappa, and the Science Honor Society. And those organizations are all awesome, and many of us are a part of those. However, those organizations only recognize traditional academic achievement that we see in the classroom. And while it's really important to recognize that traditional academic achievement, we also think it's really important to recognize the different achievement that we see outside of the classroom. The work that we do in these clubs involves improving skill sets that are applicable to the outside world. They foster growth and exploration in areas of interest, and they encourage ambition outside of the classroom. Thus, we believe that they deserve to be recognized. So I've discussed with my peers the specific criterion that we believe that ought to be used for these organizations that we believe will still maintain the original purpose of honor cords at the graduation ceremony. So we believe that any academic club at Lewis Palmer High School, or Palmer Ridge High School if this does go through, that spends 90 or more hours per semester practicing, working, and competing ought to be recognized with honor cords. We also believe that any advisor for any specific organization ought to have the discretion to make specific recommendations per the infrastructure of their own club. So, for example, the Speech and Debate Club, those that qualify and compete at the state competition could then get an honor cord at graduation. As far as obligations from the school board and the school, all we need is y'all's approval, and after that it can be up to the discretion of the different club's advisors to get a hold of those cords. Almost every single one of the organizations that meet this criterion currently are national organizations, and thus they have cords delegated to them by those organizations, and all they'll have to do is go online and purchase those cords. And so it'll be easy, and the students are more than willing to cover the small costs, those really small fees for those cords. And finally, I wanted to talk about one of the clubs that I spend a majority of my time doing, which is Debate. My team and I spend about 40 hours per week practicing, prepping, and competing, and it's provided me with a wealth of knowledge, so many opportunities, and an awesome arsenal of skills. The executive director of the National Speech and Debate Association, whose name is J. Scott One, actually wrote a letter advocating for the ability of NSDA students to wear honor cords at graduation ceremonies, and he said, quote, "We are the standards-bearing organization for the discipline of speech communication and education at the secondary level, which underscores the academic nature of this activity. Practitioners have compared students' year-long participation in debate to the completion of a graduate-level thesis," end quote. This organization has done more for me than any single class ever has and probably ever will, and it's allowed me to be engaged in something that I find so meaningful and so engaging within my community. And I think that it's within these clubs that we can explore our passions and get this real-life experience, and so that's why we think that we would like to have these cords available to us.
Thank you, ma'am. Next, we'll proceed to board member comments. Mr. Poff, if we might start with you, sir.
I really don't have much to say. Is there snow in the forecast that I have? I'm just kidding, just kidding. It's good. Actually, I just want to say thanks to all the sports, and it's amazing. Like Nick, I think Nick was the one who was talking about this. that for such a small school district, we have a lot of state championships. And that takes a lot of dedication, and obviously we always have great academics, but I think it's just amazing that Palmer Ridge, you know, if I try to list all these, I'm gonna come up short. So Palmer Ridge was state champions in football, Lewis Palmer in basketball and volleyball. I'm missing something. But I mean, it's just amazing every year. For my 11 and a half years on the board, it's just been amazing to watch all these events. And again, for me, as a board member, I'm always watching to see how they act, how they represent our district, and they always do an incredible job. Our kids are just amazing, and I'm very proud that I have 2 K through 12 kids that graduated through this system, and I just can't say how much I appreciate this district.
Thank you, Mr. Poff. Mr. Taylor?
Well, let me just add to that. I agree with you about this community. This is why we moved here, is this great community that we have. And everybody that I've met in this community, I have a ton of respect for. Great people, and they raise great kids. I think my wife said to me, one of the benefits of teaching at Lewis Palmer is the quality of the kids that come through. And I echo that with what Mark just said. So we've been working hard on prepping for a bond campaign this year, and we've met with a lot of professional folks, and in our presentations over the next couple months we'll be finalizing a lot of that information. I would like to publicly just say that I think a well-informed community is going to make a well-informed choice. Thanks.
Thank you, Mr. Taylor. Ms. Phillips?
Well, I'll start by dovetailing on Mark and Chris's comments about the teams, and I have been at every Lewis Palmer basketball game because I have a player on that team. And unfortunately they've left, but I'm going to say my statement anyway, because I think the LPHS boys who have conducted themselves with such what they call Ranger class, that's an acronym, and I can't recall every descriptive of CLASS, but they embody all of it. And as a parent, and knowing the time and effort that each of them have invested in improving and contributing to that one team, even during their greatest struggles, it's been inspiring to watch them. They've exhibited perseverance, persistence, and grit, and they represent the qualities of so many of their peers in this district. And so I wanted to congratulate them and say well done. I also wanted to acknowledge all the musicians who've invested such time and effort into this season of solo and ensemble competitions and honor band practice and participation. I know a lot of our district students are involved in those, and I just wanted to say, give them a bravo. And I have recently attended the CASB winter legislative session a couple weeks ago, and learned quite a lot, and it was very informative. I just wanted to add a few details about that. There was a lot of talk about Colorado funding and how complex it is for public education, and that it's going to be a stepwise process moving forward. In other words, there will not be a single legislative bill or decision that can fix everything right now. So it will be stepwise, and it will require patience. I did attend 2 breakout sessions that were of note. One of them, with regard to future discussions for our board, was a presentation by Mental Health Colorado regarding social and emotional learning, advocacy, and mental health support systems. And we as a board are receiving really important insights from our district counselors, both from the high schools and from our elementary schools. And as a board, I'd like to stay very attuned to this information, to be attentive to the needs of our district, not only when crisis arrives, but in as comprehensive and as supportive a role as we can provide for everyone. The second breakout session I attended was on BEST grants, and I learned a few more of the nuts and bolts of the grants writing process, and in that vein, I learned enough to gain even more appreciation for our grant writers. And I'd like to just applaud those involved in the most recent grants that we've obtained, and I don't want to venture into naming them because I might get them wrong, but they've been posted publicly. And I know that a number of people are involved in that process, and we are grateful. And I think, oh, I did have one other, just a general announcement. We had set out 3 dates for Lewis Palmer Middle School public tours. And one of the dates was during the blizzard, so that one was canceled. We had 2 other dates set, and unfortunately, just due to the middle school schedule, we are having to cancel the April 3rd date. And the April 4th date will involve a time change to 1:45 p.m. to 2:45 p.m. now. And we will update that information, but since that's current as of today, I wanted to get that information out. And we might possibly be getting, or be able to arrange future dates for tours between now and the end of the school year, but it's still unknown, so stay tuned.
Thank you, Ms. Phillips. Ms. Upchurch.
I also wanted to say and celebrate our students. It was a lot of fun to go to those basketball games and see our Rowdy Rangers. And I also wanted to commend our 2 young ladies that presented with the Kiwanis. Seeing the steps from when they were young till they get older, and seeing that process, they were so well spoken. I wish they were still here because they were so well presented and well spoken. So I wanted to say that's a real testament to the leadership skills they learned through that program. And I also wanted to commend our students for taking the ambition and the initiative to advocate for yourselves. And it was a very well thought out presentation. I like that you had a solution to the problem and that you presented ideas and solutions moving forward. So good job on your speech. Thank you for sharing, and thank you for having the strength to stand up and advocate for yourselves. I also wanted to say a commendment to our DECA students. We have we even have some foreign exchange students that are going to nationals for DECA. So if you guys have never judged one of those events, it's quite amazing to see how much our kids grow and how well presented they are. So I also attended the legislative conference with Teresa, and some of the hot topics was free preschool, or I'm sorry, free kindergarten, sorry. The free kindergarten for full day is a top priority of the governor, and he expects it to be approved. They won't vote on that until May in the General Assembly. But Jared Polis did come and present to us. We also heard from the Joint Budget Committee, as well as some of our local legislators and some of our Colorado Association School Board advocates. Another thing that was talked about was the possibility of a uniform mill levy statewide was something that was brought up a lot. And advocacy for local control for us school boards to advocate for local control. There's a lot of new legislators out there. Of the 200, or the, how many are there? There's 448 bills, and 68 of those are education bills. So CASB presented a really neat, interactive, and intuitive, easy to follow website piece on their website now that shows, you can go on there and you can go to their bill tracker, and it shows how it's being introduced, how it's being presented, what its status is. And it's one of the best interactive tools I've seen out there. And then you can click on the bill. It even shows what does it fall under, for students, for educators, for finance. So it's a really good intuitive tool to use, and it's really easy to use. So I would advocate for others to use it too. What else? I also went to the Colorado Preschool Program's 30th year anniversary, and we got a legislative update on that one from the CDE, and I'm going to pass these to you guys. We got an email of these, but here it is in a booklet form, and it was really good information because what it presented was, you got it? Pass one down to you guys too. What it showed was that it showed for the first time longitudinal data for students who participate in the CPP program, which is the Colorado Preschool Program. And it showed that those that are participated, it shows that they had lower rates of significant reading deficiencies, better chances of graduating on time, and fewer incidents of being held back. So this is the first longitudinal report that was put out there like this, and it also shows a historical context of the program and the benefits, and it really shows how that's right there, yeah, the history of the program as well. So the other breakout sessions that they had was early intervention evaluation requirements, the benefits of pre-K through third grade, that early childhood education, and then there was one that the CD covered on their Office of Family School Partnerships, which was created back in 2013 as an initiative, Senate bill increasing parent involvement in public schools. And we're only one of 2 schools, or 2 states in the US that has this initiative. And so we're really paving a path there. So it lays it out on the CD website on how it supports schools and districts in implementing family and community engagement practices, helps parents engage in their schools, ensures that school district boards of education have district policies around family and community engagement. So that was a really good breakout session as well. And on the back of that, I went and visited with all of our preschool students in each of our preschool classrooms this last week, just before the storm. And that's the reminder of why we do this. Just sitting down, playing with clay, and having fun with the kids. So that was really a benefit. And I went and did that with Julie and our other CPP coordinators. So it was a good reminder. And I think that's all I had as well. Yep.
Thank you, Ms. Upchurch. I too want to thank the students from Lewis Palmer coming and speaking with us. And Ms. Ackerman, if I recall correctly, you met with the President of the United States, was it last week or the week before? All right, and if I also understand, you had the privilege of introducing a U.S. congressman or senator? Yes. And who was that? Okay, and which forum was that in?
So I actually had lunch with them, so that was kind of cool. And I just introduced him to give a speech to a group of 104 students from across the nation and the Department of Defense Education activity.
Excellent. And as my fellow board members may recall, we had the privilege of recognizing Ms. Ackerman, I think the last board meeting, for her recognition of receiving a national award. Want to thank you all for being here tonight. You know, it's great to be here in Monument. It was great to have the recognition of our coaches and our players. But behind all that success, we always have to attribute it to the Lewis Palmer team. You know, it's the principals, it's the staff. Everyone makes District 38 great. And it's truly a privilege for me to live in this community and also to have 3 of my kids attending here at District 38. Want to thank the administration for their proficient and judicious way in handling, what was it called, the bomb cyclone. And quite frankly, if those decisions weren't made when they were, quite frankly, it could have been a safety issue and perhaps catastrophic for some of our kids. So thank you for doing that. I also want to thank Ms. Phillips and Ms. Upchurch for their dedication and going to the conference and for their presentations tonight. And also want to recognize our 2 new principals, Dr. Bramschreiber and Ms. Welch. I think both of them will be a great fit for our community, but I too am saddened by the 2 great principals that we're going to be losing. Ms. Broff, that's all I have. I'll turn a few minutes over to you.
Well, just very quickly, I did want to recognize all the work that went into living through the bomb cyclone. I know why a lot of people are home safely. We have a lot of people out on the roads trying to check out conditions, things like that. We even actually had, Kilmer was a Red Cross site, and they actually served quite a few people that were stranded in their cars. We had over 200 people that were stranded right here in Monument during that blizzard. Obviously, it was a blizzard like one we haven't seen in a while, and had the potential to be very dangerous. And because of the conditions and the drifts that we had throughout the district, it was impossible to open until really we were fortunate to have the weekend, because we would not have even been able to open on Saturday otherwise, just because of the huge drifts we had everywhere, and El Paso County trying to keep up with the snow removal, et cetera. So I just did want to recognize the fact that a lot of things are happening behind the scenes during those storms, and while everyone is home safe and sound, there's a lot of coordination that's going on to make sure that we have power. We had to assess all of the food in our refrigerators and throw anything away that didn't meet the standards and requirements. And there's a lot that happens that, you know, beyond what we're really fortunate for is all of our kids were safe, and we didn't have any kids out, hopefully, out stranded unless they were with their parents. So just wanted to recognize that. Obviously, we had to reschedule a lot of things because we had a lot of events happening last week. In addition to the tours, that then bumped this testing, that is the reason why we can't do the tours on the 3rd. And now we have superintendent interviews that we had to bump. We have some CFO interviews that we had to bump. So we'll be playing catch up for a little while to make up from those 3 days of lost time. And so I think at this point the board has made the decision to move forward on the 3rd and 4th for the superintendent interview, so that is set.
The second and third.
Excuse me, thank you. 2nd and 3rd. Thank you for clarifying that. I wouldn't want anyone to think it was the wrong day. So we also are still not quite where we want to be with regard to information back from CRP on our modular costs. We had planned to get those costs this afternoon in a meeting, and they called to reschedule to Thursday. We had hoped to have that information for you at this board meeting. They were not prepared and didn't have the information they needed for that, and so we will get that information to you as soon as we get a budget change for that, because they have looked at some different things and realized that potentially the original estimate that they gave us needed to be modified. We heard about legislation, and I'm just going to hit a few highlights on that. We have a concurrent enrollment bill out there that will look at requiring us to offer as many concurrent enrollments as parents want to take and students want to take. That's a little different than the way the law reads now, although many aspects of the new legislation really just reinforce the existing law. There's a teacher prep bill out there that will look at, that could be a burden to schools in terms of cost, that will look at paying teachers for teacher residency, and will also require a stipend go to the mentor teacher that works with them for a year versus the traditional 6-month time period. All of these bills are currently being modified and changed daily, so anything I say could change by the time the bill comes into play, so it may be different by May. The READ Act, a change to the READ Act to require some different things for us to do for students that are identified with a significant reading deficiency. And full-day kindergarten, as we mentioned. The interesting thing about full-day kindergarten as it reads now is we either do or don't offer it in our district. It can't be that Prairie Winds offers it and Kilmer doesn't, so it's either we do or don't. And we forego the funding, and we can't charge tuition. So if we don't offer it, we will not be able to afford to offer it for free in the schools that we have space. So that's another space consideration. If it passes, we essentially have to, because so many parents need full-day kindergarten in our district, and so many of our kids take advantage of it. It probably won't be a huge impact in terms of space because we do have so many kids taking advantage of it. But as the bill reads now, if it passes, we can say, no, thank you, we're just going to keep doing half day, but then we can't offer full day and we can't charge for it. So it is kind of a game changer if it passes. The uniform mill levy looked like it was gaining some ground, but now it looks like it may not move forward. In that particular instance, it would require that we backfill to reach the 27 mills, and we can backfill from our existing MLO, but that means money that we don't get for our MLO, because if we don't backfill, the state takes that away from our PPR. And it requires, in its current state, it requires we go to the voters to approve giving increasing our mill levy. And I'm not talking about increasing our MLO, just the basic mill levy that goes to the state equalization formula. The family bill, it's the family medical leave bill, that potentially could have a huge impact on us financially if it passes. It's obviously not just an education bill. It is a bill that would require, I believe it's up to 60 days we would have to pay for leave. And in a profession where we have a lot of leaves happening, it would have a significant impact on our budget in terms of needing to pay a salary for guaranteed 60 days for any employee that takes a leave. For family, and this isn't just medical, this is family leave. So it would apply to paternity leave, those kinds of things as well. So more to come. As per what usually happens, we get new bills and no money to address the bills. So we're a little worried about some of the things that are out there, but we will keep you posted. The open enrollment period ended, and with the exception of Monument Academy, all K-8 schools are closed to out-of-district open enrollment. I just wanted to give you a few factual pieces of information. With the exception of, we had 235 folks, students apply for open enrollment, and out of that, 35 were new to D38, and we only took those that were either siblings or staff. So, and of the 35 that were from out of the district, most of those were Lewis Palmer High School and Palmer Ridge, where we do have room right now. The typical is Lewis Palmer Middle School, 0 from out of the district. Palmer Lake, 1 from out of the district, and that was either a sibling that was already in the school that they took the other sibling. Ray Kilmer. I don't know what we're looking at. Ray Kilmer is got 2 out of district new to D38 students. And then the Homeschool Enrichment Academy has 1 from out of district. So also Monument Academy, I just wanted to report on that. They had a total of 148 applications. The total enrolled were 113, so that makes their wait list of those that attempted and didn't get in for some reason 35. So that's kind of their status right now.
Quick question.
Yes.
Do you have a count on how many were turned away?
From Monument Academy?
No,
or
for
from
the school district.
I don't have that right in front of me, but I can certainly find that out.
That'd be helpful.
Then I just wanted to let you know about the new board group email address. It's called schoolboard@lewispalmer.org. The new email address sends emails to all board members and Kathy and Vicki. And you will need to decide as a board who's going to respond to those, because as Teresa and I spoke recently, it doesn't work when every board member has a different kind of response. So at some point in a work session, you're all going to have to decide who responds to those from the board. And generally, if it's an operational thing, it would be just redirected to the superintendent's office or to the school or whatever that might be. But that is something that you'll probably need to decide.
Ms. Namika, would you add that to our work session agenda for April? Thank you.
Then just wanted to let you know the website is getting a facelift. Got a new look over spring break, improved search engine, and simplifies and updates and gives better phone accessibility, mobile accessibility. And then the back-end user interface is basically the same. So on to Cheryl.
Just 2 things. I'd like to also publicly thank all of our folks, especially grounds maintenance, food service, for all the hard work during the storm. We actually found part of Prairie Winds' greenhouse today in different yards, as well as in the street. So the cleanup continues, but a special thanks to Ricky Vestal and his crew. Of note, per the question that Mr. Taylor asked just now to Ms. Broth, I received word from Mr. Foster that in fact we won't have good numbers for folks who didn't get in because we wouldn't have had them run through the application. If they walk in the door to Mr. Taylor, our registrar, and said, you know, I want to get a new kiddo in, I live in District 20 or Douglas County, we would have automatically, third grader, let's say elementary student, middle school student, we would have automatically said no, and they would not have completed the paperwork per policy. So.
Well, that's too bad. I'd like to make a quick statement about it because, frankly, I think it hurts our school district to not have open enrollment. You know, our funding is based on a per pupil revenue. And so as we have hit overcapacity in our middle school level and reaching capacity at others and stopping open enrollment doesn't help our revenue at all. And it is not I can't think of one thing that's good about not having open enrollment. So I just wanted to make sure that's clear.
Anything else, Ms. Wongman?
I'm good, thank you.
One item I neglected to address during my public comments, there's a high probability we'll be changing the date of our April board meeting from April 15th through to April 8th. I think, Mr. Taylor, you're the only one that I didn't have an opportunity to speak with. Would you be available that evening?
Which evening?
April 8th.
Instead of the 15th.
I'll have to call in.
Okay.
But I'll be here for April Fools.
Promise?
And I also neglected to wish Mr. Taylor a happy birthday.
It was your wife's birthday today. Is it yours or hers?
It's his.
It's Mr. Taylor's birthday.
And I'd like to wish my brother and sister, who are also born on this day, a happy birthday. I'm not sure they're listening, but.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Taylor. All right, moving on to the agenda items, discuss the monthly budget pertaining to the 2019-2020. What's that? Ms. Wangerman, would you pause for a second? I believe Ms. Upchurch also wanted a moment to make another comment.
Actually, I was just going to be real short. Sorry. One of the things that I thought of after our winter legislative process, being the delegate for D38 as a school board delegate, coming up on our work session come September, I'd like for us to, as a board, talk about when the resolutions come forward and these resolutions are voted on at the October delegate conference, that we as a board have our spokesperson going forward and representing us as a board, that we've discussed the resolutions and that we've discussed what's being brought forward, and if there's anything that we as a board want to see brought forward to the Colorado Association of School Boards, that would be our opportunity to have the person that's our spokesperson advocate for on behalf of D38 School Board. So just I'd like to add that to a work session where we all are on board and somebody's going forward and united.
So the August work session agenda?
August work session would be good.
Okay. Mr. Mika?
Could be September, couldn't it?
It could carry into September. The resolutions start being turned in August or September, and then they're voted on in October.
Okay. If we need to move it up earlier, just let us know.
Okay.
Okay. Sorry, Ms. Wangerman.
I apologize.
So, we're walking through our budget process.
I'm not sure it's working.
It is not working. It was green, now it's red.
This one's working. So we're walking through the budget process, and for March, we were to finalize the compensation package, and as you know, Mr. Foster's presented on this. We are right now projecting, based on the current School Finance Act, that we believe will has been proposed by the governor, and we believe it'll move on forward, a 3% wage increase for all staff members. We're also budgeting a 5.5% increase in health insurance costs, and I believe that is on your agenda this evening. Then we also, as of July 1, have a 0.25% increase in our para contribution.
Could you state how much after that 0.25 increase to para, how much is the school district's para contribution per teacher?
About 20.5% of every dollar spent on wages for all employees in the district. And it's projected to go up from there. At the same time, we have our increase of 0.25%. Our employees will shoulder an increase of 0.75%, or 0.75%, as of July 1. And if you've been following PERA and their funding status, you would know why these moves are being made as part of some legislation that was passed year before last that's now coming into effect.
But it's good to compare that PERA is 20.25 and Social Security is about 7.5% to 8%.
Yeah.
Sorry, go ahead.
No, that's okay. That's okay. We were also during the month of March to discuss and approve fees. Actually, Mr. Foster is the head of the game on that. We've already gotten those approved for next year. It also is also in March when often we come forward and say we need to start early on capital reserve projects. At this point in time, we do not have any that we want to bring forward. Peter and I are not getting along today. We have 3 different funds that we need to review tonight. The first one is probably the most problematic for us right now. That is the Insurance Reserve, or the Risk Management Fund. It's funded by the general fund, and it's for our boiler and liability insurance. Our health insurance is paid for out of the general fund straight through, but we have a special fund for risk management, or insurance reserve. We are currently with or obtain coverage through the Colorado School District Self-Insurance Pool. All but a handful of districts of the 178 school districts in the state get their insurance from this pool. Like 5 to 7 districts don't. There is a dramatic cost increase projected for the cost of this coverage. It's primarily in the property area, and it's related to the fact that the Front Range has been designated as a high risk for wind and hail storms. So it's a national designation, if you will, but our coverage to cover damages from roofs, if you will, and wind damage is increased significantly. We are in the process of attempting to bid out coverage. Not that we necessarily think we can find a better deal, if you will, or better service, but given the large cost increase that's projected, it seemed the prudent thing to do. We are having difficulty, and I talked with the DAC committee about this last week, actually obtaining someone that will give us a bid. We had a local insurance company already tell us, you know, you should stay with the pool. You're better off as a school district where you're at. The gentleman that owns this insurance company has kids in our district. But that was his analysis. We are looking at another vendor and trying to obtain a quote from them. The issue is we are on a fixed deductible right now for every single hailstorm, no matter how many, or windstorm or snowstorm, no matter how many buildings it hits, we have flat deductible rates. Given the risk with these winds and ice and so on that have coming forward, insurance companies are trying to move to a percentage of building value deductible. Yeah. So that could eat into our reserves. So let's say, for example, we have a storm that hits Palmer Ridge, Lewis Palmer Middle, and Lewis Palmer Elementary. Hailstorm gets all 3 roofs. And then they say, well, nope, your deductible is a 1% of value of property, which isn't unusual. $56 million, Palmer Ridge High School, 1%, $560,000. We cover about half the cost of that roof, but you could see what very quickly could happen to our reserves. So we have to look at this whole thing very carefully, look and see what options we have, and then we'll come forward to you all and talk about what options we have, look at what risk you all would like to take, and try to make an informed decision. And right now, Mr. Foster and I are working through that. So that's what's going on with that.
A quick question there is, I guess the Bond cyclone is similar to wind and hail?
Yes, it is.
And did we have any significant damage in any of our facilities?
We are tracking it right now. We had the food loss at Lewis Palmer Elementary School and a little bit at Prairie Winds, some vegetables and such, and so we're tracking the value of that. We had a damper that got stuck on, which is too bad because we just replaced the system. At Kilmer Elementary School, for some coils, we had a bit of a wet carpet We're tracking costs on that. And then I mentioned the greenhouse, which was donated by Parent Group a few years ago that's here, there, and yonder in Kings Deer. Other than that, we're still assessing further damage, but we'll collect all that and then see if it meets the deductible and decide whether or not to move forward.
And what's the timeline for that you and Mr. Foster are working on in terms of the insurance reserve?
April and May, I think we'll actually have some yes, we can obtain a bid, or no, we cannot answers between now and April, actually. Okay. Going on to the bonded redemptions fund, I've attached that in your packet, and then I've also attached for you all nutritional services fund. On the bond redemption fund, I've created this based on our current debt and revenues. After our bond passes this November, we will need to revise this with the new revenue and expenditures. So I'll make sure that the new CFO is well aware of that. And then on food service, it switched from being an enterprise fund to a special revenue fund starting in 2014-15. You have it in your packet. That's why there's that odd column kind of right in the middle where you see all of a sudden special revenue fund. You see the projections there. We projected some growth in revenues based on student enrollment and lunch trends of late. We've also estimated a 5% increase in food service costs in terms of food costs for next year. I'd be happy to answer any questions. You will get another opportunity to see these in May and in June. This is so you don't get hit with 1,000 numbers at once when we get down to that point. Also included, just you've seen these before, but just having the debt service graph. Any questions?
I just wanted to say thank you. At the DAC, you did the District Accountability Advisory Committee. Cheryl did a really good job on presenting this, and the DAC gave feedback on what priorities, and everything seemed to line up really well. So it was a good presentation and a good discussion. So thank you, and thank you for doing that earlier.
Thank you, Ms. Wongeman. I'd like to make a motion to approve the adjustments to the 2018-19 school district calendar as presented to address recent weather-related district closures and to comply with state statutes regarding instructional time.
You just jumped with that.
Well, if there's a second, then we could have a discussion. If you would like to have Mr. Foster come and take care of it.
No worry. I mean, okay, I'll second it, but I would like to discuss.
Okay, Mr. Foster, would you come forward, please?
I can try to answer your questions.
So if I looked at it right, at this point, we're only adding the 1 day. Or are we taking?
We're adding 2, May
both
the April day and the May day.
Okay, so we are taking both the days at this point?
That will put us back.
How many will we have left? I didn't see where there were supporting documents on. I saw the
We
calendar.
have half a day right now in the elementaries, 0.53 and 0.43. I didn't bring my computer.
Right now, before we add the 2 days back.
Right,
Before
that's
we
what
add
I'm
the 2 days
interested in.
back. We're negative in the others, hours-wise.
So even with the adding of these 2 days, we need to cross our fingers.
Yes.
However.
But one of the things that requires from a waiver, which I'm investigating right now, is that you have to sort of ask for a waiver on two different conditions. One is the 160 days, and the other is the number of hours. The 160 days is pretty simple. It's an email. We're under the 160 days in our elementary level. But we have to have shown for the hours that we have taken all attempts, reasonable attempts at regaining those hours. If we leave 2 days on the table, we haven't taken our reasonable attempts.
No, I'm good.
And just a larger question, is there any consideration that the last storm was covering most of the state? Do they make any allowance for?
No.
Okay.
They didn't.
You
can ask. I asked today. We sent off an email. We received an email back from CDE that said we could ask for the waiver on the 160. It'd just be an email at this time. I'll send him an email. And then for the 1056 for the hour count, for those, I'm going to have to send a more formalized form out to them to account for all of our hours. And
We will continue to push on that, though,
Yeah.
because in the
I'm gonna
past
try,
years,
but-
they've waived whenever it's when FEMA, when it basically becomes an emergency, which it was declared. So we'll continue to push on that, and
We'll see
even
if
if
we
I
can't
have
get
to
'em.
connect to Katie Anthony's, I will.
Even given that you're recommending that it's best to
Yes.
April 19 and May 10 release them both.
May 10, okay.
Yeah.
I don't see that on there.
We've got to have some
Leeway.
right, because they may not forgive the next 2 snow days.
Any additional questions? Okay. Ms. Namika?
Mr. Clausen.
Aye.
Mr. Pop.
Aye.
Ms. Phillips.
Aye.
Mr. Taylor.
Aye.
Ms. Upchurch.
Aye.
Thank you, Mr. Foster. I'm sorry, Mr. Poff, I understand what you were saying, my friend.
No worries.
Okay, let's move to the discussion regarding solutions to address middle school overcrowding. And Mr. Taylor and Mr. Poff?
So what part are we going to show first? Oh, we got to go sit up there?
No, I'm just going to make it bigger.
If we're going to talk numbers, then that's your business.
That's much better.
I mean, everyone should have it in their board docs.
I think it's for the
Can you
public.
tell us which document that is?
Just do that.
Do you want me to go?
Yeah, go ahead. It's asking me to re-log in.
So let me start with, I noticed at the DAG meeting that Tiffany did a really good presentation that came from our work session, which was very helpful. I think it helped people appreciate the approach we're taking. And Cheryl did a really nice job again on the budget discussion, helping everyone appreciate the nuances of this budgeting process. We've worked with the professional folks, and tonight on our timeline that we have established, for March, we're finalizing our construction costs and our conversion costs. In April, we'll be finalizing our talking points, the pros and cons of each of the issues. And then in May, we'll have the final bond structure that we'll publish in May. I don't want to go any further than that, but that's what our current timeline is, and we're on track for that. So what you see tonight is information that's been provided by GHP Construction.
Yes, GH Phipps.
Phipps, right. And CRP Architects. And so the construction costs actually have gone down a little bit from last year. And the reason they've gone down is because primary reason, I should say, is because the construction timeline is no longer a compressed 8-month timeline. It's now a normal 13 to 14-month timeline. And that gives them the ability to choose from more subcontractors, et cetera, and get better bids and pricing. Now that's partially offset with escalation costs, and we've actually added back a few things that we had taken out of the 2018 projection. So I would like to just have Karen talk to what we're actually building here as we've designed. We talked with Peggy and her team and you and several others, and just is it satisfactory, or is it, you know?
Yes, the way, and when we had to, what they call value engineer, that's a term for slash the budget and remove things. We had to value engineer out some features that would ultimately save the district money, that would create energy efficiency, that would just enhance the wearability and increase the sort of the ability for things to age well. We had to value engineer those out at the last go round in order to meet the budget for the bond. But because we have extended the schedule, and because we have a solution for 2 years with the modular classrooms, obviously not the ideal solution, but certainly we projected using those for 2 years, and so we have the opportunity to stretch out the timeline for build. We were able to save money in that process and add back those items we had removed or value engineered out. And none of these items were things that make it, you know, like the most it's not about looks necessarily. These were all things. Obviously, it will be a pleasing elementary, and it will meet the needs of our students and be an instructionally sound environment for our students. But it's not going to be flashy, and it's not going to have a lot of cosmetic features. That's not what we value engineered out. What we valued engineered out were those things that ultimately having in will save us money in maintenance and upkeep later on. So we were able to put those things back in, and that's a good thing, because ultimately it's a better economic decision for the district to do that. But so it's a solid, strong instructional environment for kids to learn in.
Excellent. And if you see on the right side in the black box, we have some comparables. So for example, last year's bond, the same design and same school was at $352 for construction per square foot. This year, now it's at $343, and that's the slight difference that it is based on having more time to build. Then we have a comp from in Jeffco, a Ken Carl Elementary School at $365, Montclair Elementary School and Denver Public Schools at $414 per square foot, and McKinley Thatcher Elementary School at Denver Public Schools at $330. So you can see we're in the mid to lower range of cost per square foot on this property. So it's a conservative projection of what our costs will be. I want to go on the left side for just a minute and have everyone note that, you know, we've got our building construction first. That's the big ticket item. Then we got our design and engineering, furniture, fixtures, and equipment. And then the permitting, utilities, site costs, et cetera, are pretty substantial. That all adds up to $30.6 million. And then we have backed out what, and I want to give Mark a lot of credit here. This is what the district is going to pay from our own reserves. So this is, it reduces the total cost of the 30.6 down to a 28.9 bond, because the district is paying 1.7 million out of its reserves. Now, to note, 1.3 of that was paid last year to do the initial design of this school. One reason for doing this is this design isn't a throwaway design. We'll use this for another school in the future, or two, or whatever the requirements might be. So when we got the design last year, it was purposed to be reusable. And that's why, in one way, that's not the only reason, but that's one reason it makes sense that we would pay for that as an investment in not only this school, but future requirements as well. Do you want to add anything to that? Okay. Any questions on the construction costs, how it's laid out? Now, we have detailed lists of what all those numbers consist of, if you want to see them. Then the next section, I put down the 2021 conversion costs, because we won't do the conversion for 2 years. So this is probably, you know, maybe going to escalate as well. But essentially, there's some construction costs, which is some remodeling. There's some design and engineering, very minimal. There's furniture and fixtures and mostly equipment, I believe, that takes up the majority of it. And then there's a little bit of site costs. It all adds up to $585, $846. Again, not a part of the bond. That's coming out of LP School District reserves.
And the only thing I wanted to clarify, because we're certainly not spending $343,000 on furniture or even fixtures. Most of that is the cost of the equipment and security enhancements that we're making in the school.
Thank you.
And as I understand it, the conversion cost plus the 1.7 minus 1.3, how did you get to that number total? I mean, did you start with a total number coming from our reserve that?
No.
Are you following?
Yeah, but the question, the 5.85 was an estimate from last year, and then we actually used some of that money, as I recall. But anyway, this was an estimate from last year of what those conversion costs will be. They're independent of the other one. Are you asking the question about what we've chosen to pay out of our reserves?
Yes, and I'm sorry, I didn't state it very well. Did you start with a budget number that a certain amount would come out of our reserve and total for the conversion cost plus what we're putting into the elementary school?
Did we have the number first and then generated to get to that number?
No, well, how did you get to?
The 1.6?
Yes, the 1.669.
Okay, so the 1.6 was the 1.3 we already paid, plus additional 300,000 from reserves.
It's more a limitation on reserves.
Okay.
I mean, we could pay for it all, but then we'd be in big trouble.
No, that's why I was asking. Did you start with a specific budget number coming from the reserve?
No, we've literally pushed the limit on what we can use out of reserves. And I think I'd hear strong arguments against this.
So we're maximizing what we can take out of our reserve to help with conversion cost and the new elementary school.
I believe so, Karen.
Just as a reminder, the 1.3 came out of last year's.
Right.
So the only thing that will come out of future reserve money will be the 300,000, and then in 2021 the 585.
So it's not all 1 year either.
Mm-hmm. Right. And the 1.3 we took out of reserves, and I think we went through that at a board meeting and talked about how we would do that.
Yeah, the use of the word maximize would be my only concern. I mean, we literally could spend more money out of reserves, but there's other ramifications and unintended consequences that would come from that. We have a certain level of bond rating that we get because we have so much in reserves. So I think we kind of looked at it, how much can we take from reserves being conservative to still maintain good reserves so we can keep our bond level and other types of, you know, if boilers burst, I mean, you still need reserves. So this was what was considered to be a safe amount. And one of the advantages of kind of ripping out, not a good word, all the conversion cost of Creekside out of the bond is we can pay for that in the future. I mean that really is kind of neat because we don't have to finance the money. And if we know that in the next 2 years we're going to need to pay for this, we can plan for it. So there's some real advantages on how we chose to do the Creekside conversion out of our own funds.
And just, I wanted to recognize the question that Teresa's asking as well. We actually talked a lot about reserves. And we had some healthy conversations, right?
Yes.
And some disagreements along the way. But initially there was a lot of conversation about, do we want to change, you know, the board, the conversation was maybe we need to change the board policy and take some of, but it was all sort of a conceptual, well, what if kind of thing, or let's look at everything. And but the reality was there was a recognition after we discussed it and talked through specifically among Chris and Mark that they wanted to stay within what we could take out of reserves without creating those ramifications.
And I have to say from my longevity on the board, one of the things that drove me crazy when I first got on the board is that previous boards can, I don't want to say in debt, but they can commit future boards. And that's something that I don't like doing. You know, if we can make decisions that can really handcuff future boards, you know, they're going to look at it and say, well, why did they do that? And you know, when I first came on the board, there were some COPs, you know, things like that. And it's like, I wouldn't have done that. So really in our decision around reserves, I think we are also giving maximum flexibility, if you want to call it that, to future boards. So I don't think they'll appreciate it because they won't understand. Like, I went through this when I first got on the board, that we basically had to make some serious changes to fix it. They hopefully in the next 2, 4, 6, 8 years will come in and they won't know any better because they'll be like, well, you know, that's convenient. You know, that like, and we showed you the bond structure where in 5 to 7 years, there's room for another school. We didn't have to do that. We could have, you know, just made a decision for what we care about now. But I think it's very important that we don't handcuff future boards. And I think that's kind of the tipping scale, if you want to call it the balance of when we went through these numbers.
No, I think it was a great approach, and I appreciate all the work you guys have put in. I just wanted to clarify and make sure I was understanding correctly.
Well, I'd like to actually thank Mark because his senior time on the board, and this has been very helpful in this process. He brought up a lot of discussion points that I would have never thought of, none of us would have, without having been there. And it's been very good, as was said, we had some good discussions, and I frankly liked it. I liked the fact that we were able to have some, I wouldn't call them heated necessarily, but I would just say there were some strong positions that we talked about. And I think it was good because it helped us look at this, and not any one person got their way. I think what evolved through those strong discussions was a very good plan. I think it's good for our taxpayers. I think it's good for our kids. I think it's good for the school district and
our taxpayers.
And our taxpayers. And so just recognize everything here is an estimate, right? Everything here is an estimate. It's the best estimate we could get from the professionals involved.
For my information, so we pulled the 1.3 million out, and with anticipated, 369,000, how much will we have in reserves? Ballpark figure would be fine.
It's going to be very close to where we're at. Might go down by $200,000.
Okay.
But in our undesignated reserves, which going back to Mr. Pop's comment, was it 7.4 million? It 7.2 million. I would say on the low side. He made a comment that I just want to respond to too, and he would know this as well. So much in reserves. We actually have in our undesignated reserves 2 months worth of operating expenditures. When you compare that to our reserves in total to similarly situated districts, which we've done from time to time, we're always smack dab in the middle. We're not too high and we're not too low. We're moderate, if you will.
Okay. So hypothetically, if there was a dip in the market next year comparable to what we experienced in the 2008 through 2010 timeframe, are you confident that we have enough in our reserves to take care of our teachers and all the costs associated with the schools?
Yes, and this is what I would base that on.
Okay.
We have a 16.67 undesignated reserve. During the height of the cuts, they were 16% cuts. We are still at that 8 to 9% level. So given what I'm seeing right now, I would say yes. However, I would tell, and I think everyone would shake their head yes, that lived through the recession, everyone, if we start to see the market begin to fall, if there were a large terrorism attack on U.S. soil tonight, we would need to immediately think about what will happen. How likely is it once CDE creates the School Finance Act that they will in fact cut it midstream, and what action should we take to begin to prepare for that?
Okay. And you bring up a good question. Ms. Broft referenced a couple of changes that we might be seeing from Denver that will increase the expenses for our teachers and administrators. Considering our per pupil revenue, if all those bills come through and we do have essentially additional unfunded mandates or unfunded demands from Denver, financially, are we going to be in good shape, also considering this 1.6 million?
Well, that's kind of hard to answer for sure because, again, some of those bills haven't reached their final form and they can morph and change. Sure. The family bill, the one in particular that I was talking about where we would have to cover family medical leave, wouldn't go into, the way it's written now, wouldn't go into effect until 2021, July 2021. So it would give us an opportunity to do some planning and rebudgeting in order to meet that. With regard to full-day kindergarten, that, if we choose to do it, will be a fully funded program. Obviously, kind of the caveats I said before, it will be funded from the state though, and each of those students will be treated as a full per pupil. Some of the other things like concurrent enrollment, we were very nervous about the uniform mill levy, but it looks like maybe that won't go through after all, at least not this session. Any of those, based on how they're written, could be a game changer. So I would say that's why you want to maintain that healthy reserve, and that was one of my arguments as we walked through some of these things, and it was hypothetical, but I, became very impassioned by the idea that fiscally it's not responsible to dip into those board reserves because they are there for a reason. And it's the rainy day fund, and it's not those severe things necessarily, although it can happen. It's also for those unexpected, unintended consequences of legislation, things like that, that we have not prepared for in our general budget. So it's tricky because I think we're going to continue to be operating in a state fiscal situation where we're barely funded for what we need to accomplish or underfunded for what we need to accomplish, and that's why we need some of those reserves.
And Matt, I want to make sure, because you said this 1.6 million. We've already spent 1.3 of that.
That's correct.
Okay, I just wanted to make sure because we're only spending 300,000 more.
Well, I understand, but based on the line of questioning, I think you could sense my concern. What we experienced during the Depression, with asking the teachers to reduce their compensation, that I just want to make sure that in the event there is another dip in the market, that we're not in a position that we have to ask our teachers to take a pay cut.
Well, understand, reserves really aren't there for year-to-year costs. I mean, it's there for you get hit by something. And so it is possible, that with some unfunded mandate that we could make a decision that for the next 3 years we're going to pay for it out of reserves or whatever. But reoccurring costs, that's what got us in trouble back then, is that we were spending money out of our reserves to pay teacher salaries. And you can't do that. I mean, so, but I don't think I want to say we have double what we had back then, but we have a sizable more amount.
Yeah.
I mean, now we've grown. I mean, so our budgets have gone up since then, but I believe there was some point we were down to 3.6 million.
That is correct.
And we're now at, I mean, if you want to talk the whole kit and caboodle, it's about 10 million. It's 7.4, but we literally at one point we were down to 3.6.
Of course, it was 10 years, quite a while ago now.
Yeah, so I actually feel better now, having kind of rode through that if we were to go through a recession right now, we would be much better off. But knock on wood, we don't need that.
Well, I think there's wisdom in hoping for the best, planning for the worst.
Absolutely.
All right. And then I also want to thank both Chris and Mark for spending the time, and I also appreciate the fact that COPs are not part of the discussion.
Yes.
And I appreciate your position that we don't want to bind future boards to our decisions today. All right, that's all I have. Any other additional questions, some comments before we move on?
No, I had a quick question, and I don't know if it pertains to this or if it's a side question or not. There's 227 million that is projected to be reserved for all-day kindergarten, and then another 25.7 for implementation for our school district. And then part of the governor's plan is proposed $77 million buy down on the budget stabilization factor. Is that how do we know where that was going to come from?
Well, that can be the desire of the governor, but that doesn't necessarily mean that that's what the JVC will decide or where the long bill will land. And so who knows what may happen. There's no guarantee that we're going to get that 77 million buy down on the negative factor, because every year we've been promised 200 million buy down, whatever, and then we get down to it's like maybe 20 million. So it's too early to project any of that.
If I remember correctly, in all these years of budgets, the governor always comes out with the optimistic one. Is that right, Cheryl? And then this other group says, okay, now back to reality. And then they hammer it out over a month or two, and then we get the real number.
Most years, I would say, in fact, that's the case. There's politics, Democrats, Republicans, who's running what, but most years, I would say, in the last 10 years, that would be the case.
Which is why we don't really know what the budget's going to be until May.
But a bit of so you all know what's happening behind the scenes. We are projecting what the governor says and projecting revenue ranges as well as expenditure ranges, and looking at variances that we have in the current year, and then adjusting up and down so that we can present you a budget balanced with revenues, ongoing revenues with ongoing expenses. And we've been doing that now for about 2 months now.
So is there any concern about, I mean, I get it that the governor wants to do, whenever I hear the word free kindergarten, I just look at it and go, nothing's free. I have teenagers. I mean, so what he's saying is fully funded, all day kinder. But if what you said, I had never heard this until you said it earlier today. That means we have to allow every student who wants to have full-time kinder, if that's the right phrase. I mean, what if we just don't have room? Because we share those classrooms.
Well, we haven't, the solution is then you can just go back to offering only half-day.
But there's a problem
But then we have parents who don't want only half-day.
There's some parents that want the full day and they're willing to pay extra for it.
But we can't.
But you're saying, okay, so again, I find it very ironic, Tiffany, because you're talking about during board comments how these legislators are talking about helping with local control, and at the same time they're eroding it. And it's like in the same sentence of robbing the bank, they're saying I'm not robbing your bank. I mean, to me, they're just liars. I mean, they sit there and they tell you that we want to help with local control, and then what do? They pass a whole bunch of new bills telling us what to do.
So,
I mean,
so just for clarification,
insane.
it was actually the Colorado Association of School Board advocates that were reminding us to advocate for local control, because right now what we do have is in both the House and the Senate, we have a lot of freshman lawmakers, and they each get 5 bills to introduce. But just because they should doesn't mean they should. Just because they can doesn't mean they should. So that's exactly the concern, is they have everybody has great intentions, but then when it comes down the line, it's the school districts that are going to pay for it.
You literally can ask every politician in the state of Colorado, do you support local control? And 99% of politicians will say, absolutely. Mm-hmm. And look at these new bills I'm going to put in that will tell you how to run your schools. I mean, I'm amazed by that. How can they do that? The kindergarten thing, I'm all for it. Well, make it free, and if we can do it, and then all these other things that they're passing, telling us how to do curriculum, I know they can't do, academic standards and stuff, telling us how to educate our kids, but yet in the Constitution it says that we have control over our districts. Do we? All right, I'm done.
And just so you know, the bill may morph and change, or the decisions around full-day kindergarten may morph and change, but it specifically says updates existing requirements to ensure a local board of education that is not offering a full-day kindergarten program as of 1920 must develop a plan to potentially provide for full-day kindergarten. So ultimately, that could be saying you've got a time period in which you've got to figure it out, space or no space. This first year, well, you don't have to do it, but then you can't offer any full day. You have to offer half day.
I'm pretty sure I could have done that bill in one sentence.
Well, it's being deemed the funded unmandate.
Yeah, okay,
just,
whatever.
Do we hear? Yeah.
Sounds like a Happy Meal to me.
Anyway.
May I make one request?
Absolutely.
I would really like to know how the per pupil funding works.
Oh my.
And the reason I would like to know that is because when I go on the Colorado Department of Education's website, I see that our school district spends about $8,500 per year per student, but the statewide average is $10,000 a year. Well, how can it be $10,000 a year if the per pupil is fair?
It's not. So it's based on factors. and size and some other things, and we could certainly present some information to you to kind of show you how it works. But we're floor funded. That's the term. There's very few of us, but more people will join us as the negative factor begins to have an impact. So we received the least amount of benefits from the current factors, which was one of the reasons why superintendents proposed this new funding formula that was more equitable and adequate, but it required more money be dedicated to pull it off, because you can't get there with the current negative factor and all these other things that are at play. So we don't have some of those factors. For instance, in the current model, the level of poverty, we do have some of that, but the more free and reduced lunch students you have in your district, you get a factor added to that. Then if you're a small rural district, it's really the size factor, you get more money. So there's some districts that are actually getting $15,000 per student in the state of Colorado. And then we're considered, again, floor funded. We're getting, I think there's 3 of us that basically get, 3 districts that basically get about the same amount of money, and it's one of the lowest ones.
Well, and the reason I bring it up is twofold. One is Mark's comments about local control, but moreover, I would like to be able to intelligently talk about this as we talk to the community over the next 9 months, because I think it's important that our community understands why our funding level is on the low end. If the average is 10,000 per year per student, we're bringing the average down.
Yes, we are.
And I would really like to understand
the average
it, and we'll simplify it to talking points we all understand, because I think our whole community has a misconception perhaps that, we should be treating our teachers better. Well, our hands are tied. Excuse me, right?
Well, and then there's the confusion over the mill levies that go to the state funding formula versus the mill levy override that we keep, and that, as soon as you say mills, people assume it's just all the money that we get to keep, and that's not the case. And so you start adding Tabor and Gallagher and all the different things, it gets confusing. But we certainly can talk to you about the current funding formula.
There's 2 dimensions here. One is the PPR as a whole. Why do we get that amount? But then the split between the property tax and the PPR that they do is inconsistent as well. And I'd like to understand why that is the case as well. We need to, if I don't, I'm serving here for a year and I don't know.
That's why we're doing this.
I understand. I just want to make sure that we have it in our April work session.
I think Chris needs to see the spreadsheet. Right. You need to see, have you seen the spreadsheet?
I've seen plenty, but I don't
you need to see.
I know I haven't seen this one.
You need to see the spreadsheet, because I remember 10 years ago when they said the whole formula is actually on an Excel spreadsheet.
Well, I can figure it out.
Oh, you stepped into that one, because I said the same thing 10 years ago. I said, show me the spreadsheet. I'll look at it. It's 80 pages.
That's okay.
It's probably bigger now, and it's unbelievable.
But we can simplify it and make it understandable for everybody. That's what we have to do. We as a board have to do that. Even if we have to hire a professional to do it for us, it doesn't matter. We have to get this so it's clear.
Actually, I think I sent to you the new superintendent funding formula information, and it had a side-by-side comparison between the current formula and then the proposed one for superintendent.
I'm looking for why. I mean, when I see the formulas, it's like, okay.
Right.
Well, some of those whys some of the whys I can answer. Obviously, poverty impacts students, and they don't come to school as prepared, so they need more support. Typically, that's the alignment there to free and reduced lunch. And then, things like EL or whatever, they need more, students, if you have a greater percentage of EL students, you need more support for those students to level the playing field. And then size factor, well, it's, if you've got a small district, it's, the economy of scale you can't take advantage of. It's difficult for you to hire if you're out in the plains, and you've got to combine with other districts, and it costs you more money. So those are the explanations, but certainly there is a thing that explains it at some point, and we can go into that, but there is also a side-by-side comparison between.
So the Lewis, or the Palmer Divide region, for whatever reason, qualifies to be the lowest funded district in the state.
Because we don't have the factors that are added into the base. So everyone gets the same base, and then the factors get added to your base, and we're pretty much at the base.
I think there's actually 6 school districts in El Paso County that are floor funded, if I remember right. And they also have an advantage. If you're a very large district, they give you more money.
Which doesn't make any sense to me.
No sense.
So I wouldn't be able to explain that one at all.
And some other large Douglas County.
And then the cost of living is factored in. So for instance, Aspen gets more money than we do because the cost of living there is such that they get more money because of the cost of living.
And how, I know the county, El Paso County, every 2 years updates the assessed value framework, if you will. How often does this framework, but the PPR framework, how often has it been updated?
It hasn't been. Yeah, that's one of the issues. That's why the superintendents came together and we spent like 1.5 years proposing a new formula because it hasn't been updated.
And really, if you want the best visual analogy, it's like Charlie Brown going out at Thanksgiving or at Halloween, and every time he goes up and they drop a rock in that's being Lewis Palmer getting funded by the state. Every time we ask for some more candy, we get a rock.
Right, but I think part of then what this discussion is not only understanding why it is the way it is, what's the impact, and literally, if we have teachers that difference in spending 80% is a reduction in our teachers' salaries. And that's a real risk to retention. You bring it up frequently, but this is the primary reason.
Right. And that size factor and the money that Douglas County gets for the size factor is one of the reasons they can pay more.
And
yeah, it's frustrating.
Yeah, we're growing, but we're not growing as fast as they are, right?
Maybe we could continue this discussion during a work session.
That'd be a great work session.
Okay. All right, moving on to the enrollment and financial dashboards, Ms. Wangeman.
So you have in front of you the enrollment dashboard. You can see that year to date, since October 1, we are up 34 students. If you were to annualize that 34 students, you'd get us to about 81 students in terms of growth. We do traditionally grow much faster. Get to the right one here. Keep going. Well,
While you're looking, can I ask Bob a question?
By all means.
So, Bob, I went onto the website where we have enrollment numbers that you helped create. The February one is there, correct? And maybe previous ones, but I was able to find a link to see this chart, only it was for February. The reason I'm asking the question is because this presentation includes the October count. Well, the October account stays the same. So every month we have an update to this schedule, but the October count remains the same.
So if you want to compare these issues, this form only goes back 3 months, I think, 4 months, and it's changed.
Well, it doesn't matter because the October count is here. That's my point here. And what I'm wondering is how hard would it be to have that for those previous, I think you've got 4 more years back there,
Yeah,
right?
we've got about 7 or 8, yeah. We can put together.
Just for October?
Just for October, grade levels by October.
Yep.
That'd be a great chart.
Because this takes care of this year, and we've only had this for 2 or 3 months, I understand, but it's really good.
Grade levels by October.
Yep. Thank you. Sorry. Sure.
That's okay. So you see that we've grown 34 students year to date. You see higher levels of growth at Bear Creek and Ray Kilmer. Not a huge surprise, but 7 students at Lewis Palmer Elementary. And as I mentioned, if we were to annualize this, we would be at we traditionally grow faster during the summer. We have another demographic projection coming in the next few weeks, so hopefully in April, we'll have a new projection by Metro Study. We'll also begin to have some of the work that we've completed here in district. We use linear regression analysis, Bob Foster and I, and Jim Taylor. We're very lucky our registrar is also a statistician. Take a look at it, and we've found historically that if we wait till April 1st to estimate enrollment, we have a much higher percentage of accuracy come October 1. So you'll see that moving as we move forward. Any questions on that?
Well, actually now though, we're kind of curtailing our own growth starting this year.
Yes, that is true, and that's something we're monitoring very closely. We are now, Bob's especially very busy with everything going on, are talking to each of our principals, doing our site-based budgeting, looking at our current enrollment, rolling that enrollment forward, and then taking a look at the demographers' estimates and what they're seeing in terms of growth and beginning to project their budgets for next year. And yes, they are all saying K-8, since we're not taking out of district enrollment, we are changing what we've done historically in terms of growth.
So just to clarify, this 34 growth would be 48 just for the public schools because of the 14 that declined out of Monument Academy, right?
True statement.
So it's really 48 in the
Yes.
public schools growth through March.
Yes.
Thank you.
Ready to go on with financials?
Yep. Any additional questions? Let's move on.
Okay, now if I can go back here. Do you know the number on that? D2?
Cheryl, thanks again. That chart you just did on enrollment is exceptional.
Okay. We're changing up, so I wanted to take a minute just to talk about this, and I would apologize that the blurb that you have in your board packet looks like the usual blurb. The snow days got away from us, but it is changed digitally online. We are changing how we provide you with monthly financial statements, and this is a beginning, and I'd like to take a walk through this. Monument Academy and Lewis Palmer School District, traditional, if you will, neighborhood schools, are changing per the discussion that Chris had, I believe it was last month that we talked about it. So Nancy Tive at Monument Academy, Marcy Studman and I began to make the conversion. Nancy Tive got her reports to us right over before the blizzard, so I needed something to do during the blizzard, so we got hers whipped through. We will, if you'd like, go ahead and be able to send out Lewis Palmer School District, if you will, the rest of the district shortly. We almost had that done this evening. I just wanted to look through it a bit more. There's basically an overview in 3 major areas, which I'd like to walk you through. The first part is the overview. This one, again, is Monument Academy. They're serving 1,000 students year to date. They've spent $5,064.48 per student. It then goes and breaks down into 2 major areas. There are 3 we're going to go over. The first is the learning environment. The second is operations. And then we're going to talk about another area that's not included in this graphic, which is other debt and construction, and you'll see why as we walk through it. So if you look at the graph, operations is 29% of their spending in this area, and then learning environment is 71%. We then move on down, and we see that they are also spending they've spent to date $607,000 in this other area, construction, debt, refinancing, and other. The reason why that's outside CDE's reports, and then we've mirrored that, is because that can vary depending on whether or not you've got new construction going on. So that's why they've excluded that.
Does that include their debt?
Yes, it does.
Because they, a portion of their building is paid for not out of PPR. They have a special fund that they get directly from the state, which pays between 25 and 30% of their building. Is that represented in here?
The expense side is. We're just starting out tonight on the expense side. Later on, as we grow these reports, you'll see that in a revenue side. This is, if you will, half of the reporting structure. So then you see...
And it ties back to what's on the CDE side, right?
Exactly right. Exactly right. So then you see the spending areas and the percentages as well as dollar amounts. And we get down to the total of the $5 million again. And you can see that they're spending 59% on salaries and benefits and so on down the line. We then begin to break that down. The first area, if you will, is the learning environment. We break it down actually by the different programs. You see that on the graphic on the right. Their largest percentage within the learning environment, not surprisingly, is instruction, classroom teachers. Then you see athletics and activities, student support, staff support, school administration, and then charter administration as a whole, which would be the equivalent of your superintendent and you all for the traditional school district. And that is all part of that learning environment in these reporting structures. So that you can see they've spent to date $2,200 in that area. You have it all broken out for you and your total. And then again, by spending area, not surprising, 85% of that spending area is on salaries and benefits. You'd see that traditionally throughout the state. We then move, and I color-coded this from the yellow part, which is learning environment, to what I color-coded as blue, operations. Now, when we think about operations, not too surprising in this area, we've got operations and maintenance, other, which, so that you know, is your business services and your human resources, your technology support, and in our district, we would also add communications into that area. And you can see they've spent $1.3 million so far, and again, the spending areas is broken down between the various percentages. Last but not least is construction debt, refinancing, and other. For them, that's the building, $607,000 year to date, or $607 per student. Again, broken out, and we've got our grand total of $5 million. It's really a fairly simple report, broken into those three areas. Again, like I said, as Marcy and I finished the school districts, if she was actually in here on Friday, she got here, I think, right before Karen and I working to get this report done, but after losing, 2 days and then having a hard time getting in, it was just impossible, so I apologize for that.
That's okay, and the budget itself will have the detailed accounts that roll up to these categories.
Exactly right, and we would do then prior year to date, we can do the same kind of reporting we do now, so we'll have comparable data.
So it'll be by school,
and then build it on up, yeah. We've also contacted Bright Bytes, which is the vendor that Colorado Department of Education uses, to see if there's a way to use their software cheaper, quicker, faster than us doing it in Excel.
Awesome.
Yeah. Questions? Good? Okay, thank you.
Dr. Benton, I believe you're up next. Thank you, Cheryl.
Thank you.
Hello. Any questions pertaining to the assessment dashboard with the 4-year graduation rate data in front of you with page numbers?
Page 1.
Dr. Brahm, he's great. Anyway, so this is the 4-year on-time graduation rate data that CDE releases. 4-year on-time graduation rates used to be how we were measured for accountability, but now we are allowed to be measured up to 7-year graduation rates. So when you look at the data that it's represented in the graph, you can see the breakdown of all of our students. And that only tells part of the story, but we always report out on our 4-year on-time graduation rates. The reason that that doesn't tell you the whole story is that we have some students who choose to re-engage and some students who stay enrolled actually up to that 7th year. And students with disabilities, we're very proud of our graduation rate. We can always do better, but we end up graduating about the same percentage of students with disabilities as we do our overall population by the time you include that 7th year.
So if I understand what you just said, they may do it, that bottom line, right, that seems
Correct.
to be the most,
Mm-hmm.
has the most variance in it.
Correct.
That's your students with disabilities.
Correct.
What I think I just heard you say is if you measured that over 5 or 6 years, then it gets closer to the district average?
Correct. All of our graduation rates end up in the 90% range, 92 and higher, but by the time you include the 7-year. Part of that's because it does include completion rate, which includes your students who earn a GED, as well as students who re-engage, as well as students with disabilities who then complete the transitions program and then earn their diploma.
questions for Dr. Broft? Dr. Benton. Thinking of Karen over here.
It's a compliment.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, I'd like to make a motion to adopt the consent. Actually, let me retract that. Is there anything that any of the board members would like to discuss before I make a motion to adopt the consent agenda?
Concerning the consent agenda? I want to bring something up after that.
So are you?
So I want to get past the consent agenda right before adjourning. I want to say something.
Perfect.
Can I ask a real quick question? Cheryl, can you clarify real quick on the revision to policies DJB and DGE on why?
Sure. A few months ago, you all may recall that you all passed policy to increase the superintendent's signature authority.
Mm-hmm.
As a part of that process, we looked at delegated signature authorities throughout the district, delegated by the superintendent, as well as all the procurement and purchasing policies. As we did that analysis, we knew we had to change our purchasing procedures, which you have in that. That's one of the policies. But what also came up as we worked with, and Kathy Nemica did a lot of good work with CASB, was the fact that the federal procurement rules had changed. It took a while for CASB to make sure that they understood what those rules were, and then we made sure that the purchasing procedures that we have in the district are in alignment with the federal purchasing procedures and meet all the qualifications. So it's all we don't have one set of rules for grants and another set of rules for everything else. So you have in front of you the policies that complete that process that we started a few months ago with the signature authority.
It just increases the checks and balances.
Yeah, make sure we're still in alignment and moving forward. Yes.
All right, any additional questions? All right, I'd like to make a motion to adopt the consent agenda as presented.
Second.
Questions, comments, concerns? Hearing none. Ms. Nemica?
Mr. Clausen.
Aye.
Mr. Poff.
Aye.
Ms. Phillips.
Aye.
Mr. Taylor.
Aye.
Ms. Upchurch.
Aye.
All right, Mr. Poff?
As I mentioned last month, I have the desire to give up the role as secretary. I can't remember if I have to do this in writing, which I'm more than happy to do in before the next school board meeting, and we can put it in the consent agenda or whatever.
Okay.
Or if we can just do it now. Vicki, I know you're the expert on this.
Doesn't have to.
On appointing the new, there's only one other person it can be.
No, actually, isn't it just appointed by
the board president appoints it.
Yeah.
I'm asking more of the question, Vicki. Can I just say verbally that I want to resign that position, or do I need to put it in writing?
I think you can just do it verbally.
Okay,
All right.
I'm good.
All right, Mr. Poff, I think I understand your position. I understood your position last time. Would you have any objections if we address this matter formally at our next board meeting on April 8th?
No problems whatsoever.
Okay. And your position is noted. All right, I'd like to make a motion to adjourn. Okay.
Second.
Okay, any questions, comments, concerns? Ms. Nemica?
Mr. Clausen.
Aye.
Mr. Poff.
Aye.
Ms. Phillips.
Aye.
Mr. Taylor.
Aye.
Ms. Upchurch.
Aye.
All right, we stand adjourned.